All right, welcome back to our second half of our Thursday morning show. Frank Sunderland's calling all the way from St. Augustine Beach. Are you down there trying to find what is it? The Fountain of Youth down there in Ponce de Leon area? Is that what you're doing down there,
No,
Frank?
no, James. That's in Ponce de Leon, closer to you this morning
Oh,
than me.
well, I thought St. Augustine was where they were looking for the Fountain of Youth years and years ago. I can't remember, but what is it? 400 years ago, the Spanish invaded Florida and called it the Land of Flowers.
Well, they arrived here. Let's put it that way.
Okay, all right.
It just depends how you look at things. If you're already there and someone else comes in, you're being invaded.
True.
But if you're the one showing up there when other people are already there, then you've arrived.
That's what I feel like when the Canadians come down here. We're being invaded. No, that's not, that's not true. But it is interesting perspective, about what's, how, if you're already there, you're being invaded. If you're coming there, you've arrived. So you've arrived in St. Augustine down there. And what are you doing down in St. Augustine?
Well, we're just doing a little bit of work here, and there's a specialist in my ancient motorhome, and we are getting ready to upgrade it to fuel injection.
Oh, okay.
The vapor lock in the in the engine is really bad because of the heat.
Yeah.
And because of the poor quality of the fuel, actually.
Yep. It's so true. I'm seeing that problem with today's newer cars where it makes the check engine light come on due to the fuel. And we have to recalibrate them. I mean, you've got an older model General Motors, which there's no computer on, but still that affects it as well. Now, you say vapor lock. Have you tried the old clothespin trick on it? You know what I'm talking about?
I have not. I use clothespins to dry clothes on a clothesline.
I know, but it works on believe it or not, I know it sounds like an old wives' tale, but they act as a heat sink, and they actually keep it from vaporizing if you'll put about 4 clothespins on between the fuel pump, the mechanical fuel pump, and the line that goes to the carburetor, put about every 6 to 8 inches apart, you will stop the vapor lock. I know that sounds hard to believe, but I proved it in class a few years ago. Wooden clothespins. Honest to goodness. Don't ask me how they do, but they work. This is something I learned from my grandfather back in, the 60s. He had a problem with his 57 Chevy vapor locking. And so he put clothespins on it, and we never had the problem again. And I never could quite understand how it worked till I got older. But according to my auto mechanics teacher, they act as a heat sink and keep the line liquid instead of turning into a vapor. The wooden clothespins.
Well, I think that I'm going to give it a try just for the heck of it.
Why not?
I would think that there'd be better things to do, and I've even toyed with the idea of just putting a small fuel cooler on it as a radiator to blow some of those, drop the fuel down.
Yeah, but putting fuel injection is going to solve the problem if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
You can put throttle body fuel injection. But we do occasionally get those customers that come in and say, well, I'm traveling through, what can I do? And I say, put the clothespins on it. And it's just something that it's old technology that's so old that it's new to a lot of people's way of thinking. This is stuff that we did back in the 60s and 70s and maybe the early 80s. But now, since we don't have carburetors, we have fuel injection, that's unheard of vapor lock is. You just don't hardly hear about it anymore. So now on your car, if you put the throttle body fuel injection on there, it should give you better fuel mileage, better performance, better starting in the morning when it's cold. I think you're going to be extremely happy if you put fuel injection on it. I really do.
I think we forget sometimes how carburetors act and how if you leave them sit, you've got to crank the engine for a bunch.
Oh yeah.
And that's when engines are at their highest wear point, and that's why old engines wore out and new engines don't wear out.
Absolutely. You hit it right on the head. When you dump raw, wet gas down into a cylinder wall and it washes the oil off a wall, they don't last very long. Where the fuel injection doesn't do that. It puts just the right amount in there for it to bust off without washing those cylinder walls down. And it does make a big difference on longevity. I mean, think about it. Some of the cars you had when you were a kid, if they lasted 70, 80,000 miles, they were ready for the salvage yard. Now, 70, 80,000 miles is nothing. We do that in 4 or 5 years on a car.
We take that so much for granted that these days, whereas, as you say, a car hit 50,000 miles, it was ancient. Today, it's nothing. It's just getting broken in, if that.
It is. I had a car come in yesterday, and it was a 2009, and it had 306,000 miles on it. And car ran okay, had a check engine light on. We found a vacuum hose had come off. And that was all those. After 309,000 miles, they needed that, repack the wheel bearings. And that was about it. And I was like, that's pretty impressive for 306,000 miles. And it's a work truck. It's a work van is what it is. They use it for working, and they drive it every day. I asked them, I said, how many miles a day do you put on? And the guy said between 200 and 300 miles a day is how much he puts on it. And that's and it's pretty impressive. You think about it, Frank, if you and I had a car, if we did that back in the 80s, I don't think our cars would have lasted that many miles. I know they wouldn't have. By normally 100,000 miles by the early 80s, you threw them away because they had carburetors on, they smoked. I remember a buddy of mine had a brand new 1974 Vega, and by 1976, that car was ready for the salvage yard. And it only had 40,000 miles on it in 2 years. That's, they were just pieces of, cars just didn't last like they do now because of the oils and the gasoline. Those two things together really make a difference. The oils that you use, and you and I used back in the 70s, when we take a valve cover off, we see all that sludge. I don't know if you did or not, but I always used to think it was the type oil we were using, but it really wasn't. It was, but a lot of it had to do with the thermostat. We ran a 160-degree thermostat, where cars ran a lot better with a 180 to 190-degree thermostat and didn't make that sludge. And that's some of the things we've learned over the last 30, 40 years working on cars. We need to run them actually hotter, the engine, than we think is best. You and I think, well, I did back in earlier, that the cooler we ran an engine, the better, but it's not true. It actually kills the engine faster to run it cooler. Makes it destroy faster.
Well,
go ahead.
While you're talking about this, if somebody drove a car 5 hours a day,
right?
Okay, 300 miles a day is about 5 hours.
Right.
On top of a work day, that is one heck of a lot of time to spend banging on the road for a non-professional driver.
Well, yeah, this guy was a work truck. Like I said, that was his job. I mean, he got in it in the morning, drove 100 miles to work. That's how far he had to drive. He had to drive 100 miles. If you can believe that, he drove, on the other side of Dothan. He drove the other side of Dothan to here, goes to work, drives all over Panama City, Santa Rosa County, all the way from here to Santa Rosa and back, and then goes back to Dothan. He does that every day and does 200 to 300 miles a day. And he says, I leave at 5 o'clock in the morning and I get home at 8 o'clock at night. And I go, whoa. But, that is his job, and he is what we call a normal driver, believe it or not. He drives that many miles a day. He changes his oil every 6,000 miles. And it doesn't go 6 months. He changes his oil about every month and a half. And that is why he got 306,000 miles on his car. But he's on his work truck. But he's very diligent about doing maintenance on it. Keeps the fluids changed, keeps everything working like they're supposed to. And the only thing I haven't done to this car that I keep telling him he needs to do is change the radiator. Because the car is now 10 years old, van's 10 years old, and I said, you need to change that radiator. It's the original one. He goes, well, it's not overheating. I said, don't wait till it overheats. You got 300,000 miles on a radiator that should only last about 100,000 miles or 10 years. You've got the 10 years on it, and you got 300,000 miles on it. You're pushing the envelope. And that goes for a lot of cars out there. If those are listing out there about radiators, they're only good for about 10 years before things kind of go head south on you. So. But you're down now. Back to St. Augustine. What were we going to talk about? What did you tell me you were down there for again in St. Augustine? I know it's
fuel injection. Fuel injection.
You're going to have the fuel injection put on down in St. Augustine?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. There's a guy here who's a real specialist in GMCs.
Oh, good.
And so this way he doesn't have to he doesn't have. I don't have to pay him to educate himself.
Good, even better. Even better. Even better. And he's going to put this on. Now, this type fuel injection system you're going to be putting on, it's actually going to have an oxygen sensor in it to do even better. Now, that's some people don't get that type fuel injection on older model cars. But if you get one with an oxygen sensor that reads and reports, you will be so much more happier. You really will. I think you're going to be very, very happy. You might even pick up a mile or 2 to a gallon with this, Frank. Instead of your 6 miles to a gallon, you may actually go to 8.
Well, you never know. I'm figuring that really the thing I'm looking at is the end of vapor lock and not having to crank it to start it.
In the morning,
those are the 2 areas that I'm really looking for the improvement on.
Yes, you will.
And the rest of it I'm okay with.
Yeah, I think you're going to be very, very happy with it. I'm looking forward to seeing how it runs for you. The biggest thing the biggest problem I've seen on the aftermarket one is getting them set up right where they'll start when cold and run at operating temperature like they're supposed to. There's just a couple little tweaks on there that I've seen that. And once you get those tweaks taken care of, man, you won't have any trouble whatsoever. And hopefully this guy's had enough experience doing this that you won't have any trouble and you're going to be very, very happy. I think you really will.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Everybody who I've spoken to who has gone to this particular upgrade with this particular setup has been somewhere between happy and ecstatic.
Even better. That's wonderful. That's exciting. And you'll be back up here. And then once you get that done, maybe you can fix that air conditioning problem that's been plaguing you.
Yeah, we have to. It did okay on Sunday on the drive out. In fact, I did not go through that cold and hot cycle.
Good.
So I don't know. Maybe somehow in the driving I flushed that crud away, but I frankly doubt it. It always comes back at the worst possible time.
Yeah, it'll come back on you when you've got a van full of people and you're sitting at a red light or on the Jane Hathaway Bridge waiting for traffic for the train to go by. That's when it'll fail on you. That's normally when it'll stop working on you, when you need it the most. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this when you get finished with it. So I know you'll bring it by the shop. We got about 45 seconds left here. What would you like to leave our audience with words of wisdom as you leave today, Frank?
Well, given the theme of the morning, I think that the idea of having to maintain a car and doing it properly and in a timely basis is very, very important. And as you say, radiators were not meant to last more than 10 years anymore without risking an engine or worse.
Ooh, so true out there. That's good advice out there. Just if you got a car that's got a radiator more than 10 years old, think about getting rid of it before the car forces you to get rid of it, or you get rid of the car. Hey, Frank, we'll be talking to you again, I think, Monday morning. Call at 6 o'clock, and we'll talk to you then, okay?
Sure thing.
All right.
Talk to you later.
All right now. Bye-bye, everybody.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers, who in turn can take care of their customers.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
Beep, 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 yeah!
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Router Plumbing. Sink, shower, and toilet emergency drain services.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is James Morris. This is Thursday morning's edition of Ask the Master Auto Technician. And every Thursday morning, Rob Lapham calls all the way from Port St. Joe, and there's no telling what he's got on his mind. We're going to find out. Good morning, Rob. What's on your mind this morning, sir?
By gosh, James, it's really tough because there was so much news yesterday. You may have to expand your program to an hour if this keeps up.
I agree. There's a lot of news, federal, local, everything. A lot of exciting things out there. Tell me what's on your mind that you thought was pretty interesting.
Well, I think for all of us, the most important news event yesterday was Justice Kennedy's retirement announcement at the end of next month, and. You know, it couldn't have come. It's just amazing. When you look at the 8 years of the Obama administration, he had 2 vacancies. He appointed Kagan and Sotomayor to the bench, so there's 2 liberal votes there to keep up the liberal side of the court. But, you know, Kennedy's resigning is more valuable to the conservative and, I would argue, libertarian cause than it couldn't have been better. Well, yeah, it could have been better, actually.
All right.
Justice Bader Ginsburg could have resigned. Heck, any of Kagan, Sotomayor, or Breyer could have resigned, and it would have been even better. But this is terrific for the president because here he is, not even halfway into his first term, and he is going to accomplish at least as much, if not more, than Obama accomplished in 8 years as far as the Supreme Court is considered. When you think that there is prospectively 6.5 years left of Trump being in office, what do you think the odds are that Justice Ginsburg will survive that herself, or that there may be some other change on the court?
I'm surprised Justice Ginsburg's still alive, to be honest with you. She looks, mean, how old is she, 82, 83? I mean, I'm not trying to be an ageist, but isn't she in her 80s now?
Yeah, she's well along. I've got to believe that the Democrats in particular are really upset that Kennedy, but Kennedy's 82, so you know he wasn't going to last forever.
Right. And
it is breaking for the Trump philosophy. The only thing that disturbs me was another what's his name? Who's our recent appointment? Gosh, names are escaping me right now. But
Roberts.
No, he's the Chief Justice.
Yes.
Who did we appoint last year? The new one.
Oh, I forgot.
Not good. Okay. Anyway, it'll come to us. But he was confirmed by an overwhelming majority in the U.S. Senate. The same thing's going to happen to whoever there's this list of 25. The president already says the person is going to be from that list. They've all been vetted 6 ways from Sunday.
I'm sure.
And So what's going to happen here is that the court for many, many years to come is going to be going, in my opinion, in the right direction. The only thing I have a slight worry about, and it applies only to us libertarians who happen to be of the pro-choice flavor versus a pro-life alternative. And as we know, libertarians are on both sides of the fence on that. In fact, I respect whichever side people decide they are. So if you have another conservative justice on the Supreme Court, there are enough votes to overturn Roe v. Wade. And that bothers me as a pro-choice person. But taken as a whole, I think the future is very good for respecting the Constitution. And the other thing that happened was a couple of days ago, I guess, but they struck down this dorky Hawaii district judge who said, "Oh no, you can't implement your immigration quotas from those 6 countries or whatever." You struck that down.
The Supreme Court
they slapped it.
Did the Supreme Court say it was all right to upheld that decision?
Yep, they upheld version 3 of the Trump immigration executive order, and the Chief Justice wrote that opinion. And he said that the president has an absolute right to decide who comes into this country. It's in the Constitution.
Right, so, and there's been precedent set before. Other presidents have done the same thing throughout history.
Yep. So anyway, court was big news. Yes, actually, the first thing that happened yesterday morning in the court, and this is again a momentous decision. The court held that union dues cannot be that state employees cannot be compelled to pay union dues.
That is a big
Well, if they do it for state government, it's going to flow to private sector as well. And not only will the dues dry up, but union contributions to the Democratic Party are going to take a tremendous hit. And so the Democratic Party has a real financial issue on the table in terms of where its
funding is going to come from, because so many of them came from not coerced, but these required dues. Whether you agreed with the Democrat philosophy or not, you still had to pay this money. And James, all these things are going on just yesterday. Guess what we didn't even hear about?
What?
Most people didn't hear about. We didn't hear that Peter Strzok was in front of Congress for 11 hours yesterday. And a few of us heard that National Security Advisor John Bolton was in Moscow meeting with President Putin of Russia, and they set the date for the Trump-Putin summit meeting.
I didn't even hear about that.
Which happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
And you just, mind you, that's not going to be announced until today exactly when and where it is. But you didn't even hear about these, otherwise would be pretty much momentous decisions. I mean, Strzok, for example, we've been following and talking about that SOB for months and months. You just didn't hear about it.
No. What I did hear about, though, is how we how being in Afghanistan since 2001 or so is pointless. Yep. That was what was written out. Someone put on their bulletproof vest if he was killed, tell my wife this was pointless. And it really dawned on me, this is the way the administration is starting to feel. And they should have felt this way a long time ago, in my opinion, because we've gone to war over there. They didn't bomb us, Afghanistan, but still, the thing is, millions upon millions of people have been affected by these wars for the last 20 some odd years. And when is it going to stop? When is this going to, when are we going to get, I hear people, Democrats saying, well, we can't be isolationists. Even Republicans saying we can't be isolationists. But that's not what we're saying. Can we stop meddling in other people's affairs? That's the question.
Absolutely.
Is that possible? Is it possible for the United States to mind their own business, you think? Do you think
obviously we would all support that. And we remember even as far back as Dwight Eisenhower in his departing speech when he left the presidency, beware the military-industrial complex. I believe it's a no-brainer that so much of this interference in foreign affairs resulting in wars or limited actions, as sometimes they call them, or police act, whatever they call
it. Yes.
I think so much of it is the big arms manufacturers in the United States who need to pump more equipment and such into our military, and it's totally unnecessary.
I agree.
8 times bigger than what the Russians spend on their military. It's a travesty. I really wish we would get more press coverage of the real facts here, as opposed to the cover-up.
And I think you're right about the military-industrial complex, because when I start talking about, hey, we might have possible peace with Korea, and I talk to friends of mine that work for Northrop Grumman or Lockheed Martin or whatever, the first thing they do is go, well, that can't happen. I go, wait a minute, what do you mean it can't happen? He says, if that happens, my job is in jeopardy. I said, excuse me, how is your job in jeopardy? Well, it's part of what we have to do to keep America safe. And I'm going, okay.
Well, I agree. There will be jobs lost in the military, in the sector that supplies the military. But the counter is so what? So we're supposed to foment a disruption in the world and have our people killed so you can have a job? Really? That's ridiculous.
Even in my business, if I can't work on 1964 Volkswagens because they don't make them anymore, that doesn't mean I should stay in business. I need to go away. And it's the same way with mechanics came from blacksmiths. Blacksmiths were the first mechanics, and then we turned into mechanics, and then auto technicians, and then we're turning into electronic technicians and battery changers. And then as electric cars come along, things are changing, and it doesn't mean that my job is secure unless I change. And it's the same thing with the military-industrial complex. They are, and the prison-industrial complex, it's more designed to break American families apart than to grow American families. And I really think having a war mentality, it shows the health of a nation, and that's not very healthy, having a war mentality. It really isn't.
Well, I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
And you present an interesting picture when you talk about blacksmiths. So when I bring one of my cars over to you for service next time, if I see a pile of horseshoes outside the front door, I'll realize, James is going down the tubes.
Probably true. It's amazing some of the stuff that we see actually come in that I see things that, we'll give you an example. had a car comes in and has check engine light. The check engine light is, they said the part's bad. Well, I changed the part, and I told the customer, I said, I really don't see this part being bad, but that's what they tell me to do. But if this doesn't fix it, there's possible reprogramming. And so what it boils down to is the type gas that goes in the customer's car. And that's what's causing the problem, is because it has too much sulfur in it. And if you can believe the government controls what makes the check engine light come, that's why I tell people all the time, politics evolves your car. Because what they do in Washington affects that check engine light on your dash, whether you have a check engine light or what makes it come on, by depending on how much the type gasoline you have, the amount of sulfur you have in the gasoline. And I know I'm throwing this in there, that people say, well, why are you talking about that? Well, that is exactly what the government gets involved with. They actually end up costing you and me more money because of their mandates, those unintended consequences you and I talk about all the time.
No question.
That's
the feds in particular. But, and as you well know, and you're far more up on it than I am, these over-regulatory bureaucratic types inhabit Tallahassee and Panama City as well. So it's not just the feds who are over-regulating all the time.
No, you can look here at your local governments. You can see, ineptness and waste of money. They were talking about Downtown Improvement Board. Do we really need to have it? And after all these years, someone asked me, and I said, it's a taxpayer boondoggle. All it does is give jobs to those that they want to have jobs to. And the business merchants down in downtown don't even like Downtown Improvement Board. They seem to make things more complicated for them, the business owners. And those are the ones that really make the difference down there. If they can't keep their doors open, there's no downtown. And I know people say, well, James, what do you mean? I said, let the free market work without government interference. And that's a perfect example of government interference, telling you, oh, you can't put this sign up, or you've got to have this business here, or we're not going to allow you to have performers on your street corner or in front of your opening or whatever. They have things so regulated. No wonder businesses are leaving downtown. I mean, I know I should be talking about that, but it's just something that affects you and I and local people. We can't affect what's happening in Afghanistan, but we can affect what's happening in our own lives down here. And it's just like government's out of control. Local, federal, state. It just, nothing really seems to change other than the names of the people in office. And I know I can rant and rave about that, but Mark, we only got about a minute, about 45 seconds left. What would you like to leave people with on a thought on their mind?
Well, we must keep talking about things such as Afghanistan. We know one vote's not going to change it. Mm-hmm. But if we don't keep the public or do our part to share those, to share our opinions, then we're not helping things out.
That's right.
And excuse me.
Don't dial me.
I guess the nice thing about former Democrat leader Harry Reid is that he changed the Senate rules in the nuclear option. Supreme Court justices do not require 60 votes. Harry Reid did it. Now he's going to see the benefit of that as far as the conservative wing side. There's no question that Trump's nominee, whoever that person is, will be confirmed unless it turns out there's something bad in their past. But it's nice to know that it's not going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. Chuck Schumer can do whatever he wants, but he's going to fail. So that's my parting thought.
We can give Harry Reid the credit for that, right? Where we don't have to have the...
Neil Gorsuch. That was the name I couldn't remember.
Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
Fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah!